News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the news today. A suicide bombing ripped through the heart of Istanbul's historic Sultanahmet tourist district this morning, killing at least 10 people, most of them German citizens. Turkish Prime Minister said that the suspect is believed to be a member of the Islamic State that recently crossed over from Syria. I-24 News correspondent Ayman Siksik reports.
Our fight against Islamic State, which carried out this attack, will continue with determination. We will not take a step back in our fight against Daesh. Our resolve will continue, as in our fight against all terrorist organizations.
In the aftermath of Tuesday's bomb attack in Turkey, which killed at least 10 people, details are emerging about the identity of the perpetrator. Like most of the victims of the explosion in Istanbul, the suicide bomber too was a foreigner in the country.
I strongly condemn the terror incident in Istanbul's Sultanahmet district, assessed to be an attack by a suicide bomber with Syrian origins.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan claimed Turkey was, quote, the top target for all terrorist groups in the region, adding that he will continue fighting all such groups equally. So far, 15 people are reported to have been wounded in the blast, which tore through a heavily populated tourist area of the city. Most of the victims of the blast are said to be German tourists. The country's foreign ministry has released a warning to its citizens abroad, saying that further violent clashes and terrorist attacks were expected across Turkey.
We are seriously concerned that German citizens could and probably will be among the victims and wounded. Those affected are members of a German tourist group, and of course the German Foreign Ministry immediately set up a crisis meeting.
Meanwhile, Turkish authorities are moving forward with their investigation of the attack and are now trying to determine the type of explosive the suicide bomber used. Eyewitnesses described a scene of shock and chaos as police forces struggled to evacuate the area for fear of a second blast.
It was a suicide bomb. I went there and I saw it and I came back to the hotel. There was chaos. Everyone was running somewhere. Policemen did not see this coming. They were trying to evacuate the area because they said there was a possibility that a second bomb could go off.
Fears of successive blasts in Turkey follow the massive terrorist attack in Ankara in October last year, in which more than 100 people were killed. President Erdogan then blamed the so-called Islamic State for the attack. In response, the Turkish government had decided to take an active role in the US-led campaign against the Islamic State terrorist group, carrying out airstrikes in Syria. Meanwhile, Turkish forces have also been targeting Kurdish militants in northern Iraq. In the myriad of security threats the country is facing, establishing who is responsible for the latest attack in Istanbul is now a matter of urgency.
And with me right now in the studio is Ali Waqt, Senior Middle East Analyst for I-24 News. Good evening. And also Professor George Zehevi, Middle East Expert at the Ben-Gurion University. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me. Professor Zehevi, let's try to understand if this attack actually will be, or IS will take the responsibility on it. It will be the third attack that IS is conducting on Turkish soil. Where does it put Turkey right now in the battle with IS and, of course, with all the Syrian crisis?
Well, Turkey has been dragged into this battle against IS, kicking and screaming. It didn't want to be part of that battle. It preferred to fight the Kurds. It preferred to topple Bashar al-Assad. But once it got into the battle and allowed the U.S. to attack from its territory and also participated in different ways in this attack, it became itself a target for IS. And the more IS attacks in Turkey, the more Turkey will be dragged into the battle against IS. And naturally, this is a very easy target for the Islamic State because the border is practically open. Everybody could move back and forth across it. So it's much easier than attacking, say, in France or in the United States. And I think these attacks will continue, and Turkey will probably, as a result of that, be dragged more and more into that fight against the IS.
You know, I'm trying to think why Turkey is dragging itself or being dragged to the fight against IS when it has its own problems inside Turkey with the PKK, with the Kurdish militants. Why to drag yourself into another war when you know that somebody else, for now, is doing the job?
Because the international community made it very clear to Turkey a couple of months ago that the Turks cannot play the double game. On one hand, supporting the Islamic State and allowing the Islamic State, and there were some intelligence reports saying that a headquarter of the Islamic State is actually based in Istanbul, and that militants of the Islamic State were caught here and there, were caught with Turkish passports, for example, and Turkey is a member of NATO. NATO is in war with the Islamic State, and without the logistic support that can be given and supplied from Turkey, the war against the Islamic State will be much more complicated. And in the last weeks, we saw that it was a part of larger equation between Turkey and the EU mainly. As Professor Zeevi said, the Turks did not want to fight the Islamic State. They were dragged into this war. But Lucy, according to the literature of the Islamic State, Turkey joining the war against the Islamic State, it is completing the puzzle of the end of times. Dabek, it's a region, that's the name, by the way, of the newspaper of the Islamic State. It's a region between Aleppo and the borders, the Turkish borders. And according to this literature, there should be the last war between the infidels and between the Muslims in this region, and passing through Constantinople, Istanbul, they will enter the West. So this is making some clear points to what the Islamic State is trying to spread and to publish among its candidates and its recruits.
So let's take the information that you gave us right now, and no, she's not joining us. I wanted to be joined by Natalie Carney, but we will try her again. Let's take the information that you just gave us. The fact that Turkey is blamed to, let's say, support IS and buying fuel from IS, and the fact that today Turkey prevented from media teams to enter the scene, to actually take footage and to actually document what happened there. I'm being a little bit suspicious about what is happening there. Maybe it's not the IS. Maybe Turkey wants us to believe that it's the IS, to say to the world, you see, they're attacking us. It's not possible that we are fighting for the IS or with the IS or helping the IS.
Well, you know, that kind of conspiracy theory exists, of course. My personal belief is that it is the IS, and the fear of Turkey is that its own situation is amazingly shaky. And I think people don't realize that. There is a huge civil war being fought now in southeastern Turkey between the Turks and the Kurds. People are dying every day. Turkish soldiers, Kurdish civilians, Kurdish underground members, the PKK, they're killing each other, and nobody really notices this war. So Turkey is in a very, very delicate situation. All it needs now is to have this to have this criticism against the government growing in its own citizenship and in southeastern Turkey in order to lose control. It's very, very much afraid of losing control, and I think that's the reason why they're trying to keep this action under wraps.
They're afraid to lose control even after the elections, where they literally swap all the votes.
Yes, well, you know, even though they won an amazing majority, they are still in a shaky situation. It's almost a Syrian situation. There is in the southeast, in Diyarbakir, in Mardin, in Silopi, on the Syrian border, there is a huge intifada. And I think they are trying to keep everything under wraps in order to control, not to let it out of their control, and allow some
and
big
Lucy,
bombing.
there is a risk that it goes out of control, because Professor Zeevi is talking about the intifada in its military aspect. When a Turkish Kurdish leader says from Moscow that an autonomy is a scenario that should be discussed to the Kurdish minority in Turkey, a declaration that is against the constitution and against the law in Turkey, and yet it was said from Moscow. It shows that going out of control is not only a slogan, and with an accumulation of incidents, a deterioration in the security situation like we saw today, an escalation in the war against the Kurds, plus more courageous political demands of the Kurds for an autonomy can put Erdogan in a real delicate situation, which he did not face since he was first elected in the mid-2000s.
Let's add to this the dispute that Saudi Arabia has with Iran, and where it puts right now Turkey, because Turkey needs now to find a new ally. If Turkey is going out against Iran about the way that Iran is handling the situation in Syria, or the, let's say, involvement of Iran in Syria, where does it put Turkey right now?
I think that instinctively and naturally Saudi Arabia should be the ally of Turkey. But the Turks don't want to open a front, at least a political or diplomatical front with Iran, and to deteriorate the situation more than it is bad now between the two countries, because one of the most interesting and most efficient cards that Bashar Assad played when he saw that he is going to lose the war was to release the Kurds and to play against Turkey, to fight Turkey's support to the Islamic State by supporting the Kurds, or at least allowing them to do what they want to do in the region between Turkey and Syria. And the Turks will not publicly, like did President Abu Mazen here, support Saudi Arabia against Iran, for the simple reason that he knows that Iran also has cards to play, especially with the Kurds against Turkey.
One last comment?
Turkey is in a real rut at the moment. It's stuck with its two main neighbors to the east, Russia and Iran, which are also her suppliers of oil and gas. And that's a crucial thing. They can't lose them both, which is why they're trying to somehow keep relationships with Iran. At the same time, they're allies of Saudi Arabia. They need Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is supporting them even economically and financially. So they're in a really, really bad situation right now.
Yeah, and the world is proving that you cannot dance in two weddings at the same time. Thank you very much, Professor Zevi, for being with us. Ali Waqid, you're staying with me.